Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Tam adame kritam vilokya pitaram sutaha marichi mukhya munayo vishrambat pratiya bodayan.
Thus finding their father so deluded in an act of immorality, the sages headed by Marichi, all sons of Brahma, spoke as follows with great respect.
Text 30. Naitat purva kritam tvadye na karishyanti chapare yastvam duhitaram gacha anigrahan gajan prabhu.
O Father, this performance in which you are endeavoring to complicate yourself was never attempted by any other Brahma, nor by anyone else, nor by you in previous kalpas, nor will you anyone dare to attempt it in the future. You are the supreme being in the universe, so how is it that you want to have sex with your daughter and cannot control your desire?
Text 31. Tejiyashamapi het etan nasuslokyan jagat guru yadvratam anutishtan vay lokashamaya kalpate.
Even though you are the most powerful being, this act doesn't suit you because your character is followed for spiritual improvement by people in general.
Text 32. Tasmai namo bhagavate ya idam svena rochisa atmastham vyanjayam asha sadharmam patum arhati.
Let us offer our respectful obeisance unto the personality of Godhead, who, by his own effulgence, while situated in himself, has manifested this cosmos. May he also protect the religion for all goodness.
Text 33. Sa itam granata prutan puro drashva prajapatin prajapati patestanvam tatyaja vriditashtada tam disho jagarhurgoram niharam tadvidustamaha.
The father of all Prajapatis, Brahma, thus seeing all his Prajapati sons speaking in that way, became very much ashamed and at once gave up the body he had accepted. Later, that body appeared in all directions as the dangerous fog in darkness.
Text 34. Kadachityatai. So I start again. Kadachitya yata srastur veda asam chatur mukat katham shrakshyami aham lokan samevetan yatha pura.
Once upon a time, when Brahma was thinking of how to create the worlds as in the past millennium, the four Vedas, which contains all varieties of knowledge, became manifested from his four mouths.
Text 35. Chatur hotram karma tantram upaveda saha dharmasya padas katvaras tathaiva shrama vrittaya.
The four kinds of paraphernalia for conducting the fire sacrifice became manifest: the performer, the chanter, the offerer, the fire, and the action performed in terms of the supplementary Vedas. Also, the four principles of religiosity, truth, austerity, mercy, and cleanliness, and the duties in the four social orders all became manifest.
Text 36. Vidura Vacha Savai Vishwa Shrajam Iso Vedadin Mukhato Srajat Yad Yad Yena Shrajat Devas Tanme Bruhi Tapodana.
Vidura said, O great sage, whose only wealth is finance, kindly explain to me how and with whose help Brahma established the Vedic knowledge. which emanated from his mouth.
Scroll up, Mataji. Text 37. Maitreya Uvacha. Rugyaju Samartha Vedan Purvadibir Mukhe Shastram Ijyam Stuti Stomam Prayashititam Vyadat Kramat.
Maitreya said, beginning from the front face of Brahma, gradually the four Vedas, Rug, Yajur, Sama, and Atharva, became manifest. Thereafter, Vedic hymns, which had not been pronounced before, priestly rituals, the subject matters of the recitation, and the transcendental activities were all established, one after another.
Text 38. Ayurvedam Dhanurvedam Gandharvam Vedam Atmana Sthapatyam Kashachat Vedam Kramat Purvadibir Mukhe.
He also created the medical science, military art, musical art, and architectural science, all from the Vedas. They all emanated one after another, beginning from the front face.
Itihas Puranani Panchamam Vedam Ishvaraha Sarvebhya Eva Vakratbhya Sasarje Sarva Darshanaha.
Then he created the fifth Veda, the Puranas and the histories, from all his mouths, since he could see all the past, present, and future.
Text 40. Sodasi Uttha Purva Vraktrat Purisha Agni Stutav Atha Aptoryam Matriya Traucha Vajapeyam Sagosavam.
All the different varieties of fire sacrifices, Sodasi, Ukta, Purisi, Agnistoma, Aptorama, Atiratra, Vajapeya, and Gosava became manifested from the eastern mouth of Brahma.
Text 41. Vidyadanam tapasatyam dharmashyeti padani cha ashramamscha yatha sankyam ashrajatsaha vritvihi.
Education, charity, penance, and truth are said to be the four legs of religion. And to learn these, there are four orders of life with different classifications of castes according to vocation. Brahma created all this in systematic order.
Text 42. Savitram prajapatyam cha brahmam kathabrutat tatha varta sanchaya salina silonchat iti vaigraha.
Then the thread ceremony for the twice born was inaugurated, as were the rules to be followed for at least 1 year after acceptance of the Vedas. Rules for observing complete abstinence from sex life, vocation in terms of Vedic injections, various professional duties in household life, and the method of maintaining a livelihood without anyone's cooperation by picking up rejected grains.
Are we finished? Are we finishing at 42?
Yes, thank you.
Yes,
Yes.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much.
Okay. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Thank you, Yashvini Mataji and Venkat Prabhu, for your very nice recitation. So we'll continue today reading and discussing Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto number 3, chapter number 12, chapter entitled Creation of the Kumaras and Others. And today we'll be discussing verses 34 to 37. We're very fortunate to come together today on this auspicious day of Akshaya Tritiya, He said there's no inauspiciousness in this day. There's only auspiciousness. And whatever spiritual activities we perform, that carries on throughout our lives. So it is fortunate, we are fortunate that we've come together to discuss and read Srimad Bhagavatam, and through the benefits of Akshaya Tritiya, may we continue doing so to the ends of our life. So I'll share my screen. Text number 34. And before we do so, we can recite the Mangala Charanam. I have a bit of a cough, so I'm sucking on some medication at the moment.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, would you like me to recite the Mangalacharan
Yeah, you can.
for
Please.
the time being?
Mhm.
Thank you. ॐ ज्ञानतिमिरन्दस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनाशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वापदान्तिकम् वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरु श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातां सहगना रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं सद्वैतं सवधूतं परिजनासहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवम् श्रीराधाकृष्णपदान् सहगना ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धु जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कान्ता राधाकान्ता नमोऽस्तु ते तप्त कंचन गौरंगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वंशकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैता गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौरा भक्त वृंदा हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 रामा राम राम हरे हरे Hare Krishna, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Sriji Kishori Mataji. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Shanyavadi Paschachadishatarine Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So today we will be starting discussing text number 34. Yeah, so this verse is taking place straight after the Vak incident, which those who have been following will know. Lord Brahma found himself in an unfortunate situation where he was running after his daughter. And then being embarrassed, he said he gave up his life, and now we are discussing As Srimad Bhagavatam says, another millennium. So text number 34. Kadachid dhyayata shrashtur veda asam chatur mukhat katam shrakshyami haham lokan samavetan yata puru. So word for word meanings. Kadachit, once upon a time, dhyayataha, while contemplating, shrashtu, of Brahma, the Veda, the Vedic literature, asan, became manifest, chaturmukhat, from the four mouths, katam, shrakshyami, how shall I create, aham, myself, lokan, all these three worlds, samavetan, assembled, yata, as they were, pura, in the past. Translation, purport by Srila Prabhupada. Once upon a time, when Brahma was thinking of how to create the worlds, as in the past millennium, the four Vedas, which contain all varieties of knowledge, became manifested from his four mouths. Purport. As a fire can consume anything and everything without being contaminated, so by the grace of the Lord, the fire of Brahma's greatness consumed his desire for the sinful act of sex with his daughter. The Vedas are the source of all knowledge, and they were first revealed to Brahma by the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, while Brahma was thinking of recreating the material world. Brahma is powerful by dint of his devotional service unto the Lord. And the Lord is always ready to forgive his devotee if by chance he falls down from the noble path of devotional service. The Srimad Bhagavatam 11.5.42 confirms this as follows. Swapada mulam bhajita priyasya bhaktvanya bhavasya hari pareshaha vikarmayachot patitam katam ched dunoti sarvam ridisan vishtaha. Any person who is engaged 100% in the transcendental loving service of the Lord at his lotus feet is very dear to the personality of Godhead. And the Lord, being situated in the heart of the devotee, excuses all kinds of sins committed by chance. It was never expected that a great personality like Brahma would ever think of sex indulgence with his daughter. The example shown by Brahma only suggests that the power of material nature is so strong that it can act upon everyone, even Brahma. Brahma was saved by the mercy of the Lord with a little punishment, but by the grace of the Lord he did not lose his prestige as the great Brahma. It's a very interesting verse, this. It's being described in this verse how Brahma, when he was thinking of creation, that's Visarga, secondary creation. Primary creation is done by the Lord. At that time, the four Vedas became manifested from his mouth. Now, where did the four Vedas come from? Srila Prabhupada explains that the four Vedas was revealed to Brahma by the mercy of the Supreme Lord, Brahma Hridaya, through the heart. Srila Prabhupada's purport is quite striking. And he tackles something quite important for us. Normally, when we hear about, read about, or experience the so-called fall down of a great personality, our natural tendency is to judge those great personalities, sometimes to condemn the great personalities, and often is to break relationship or faith in such great personalities. That is our natural tendency. Happens quite often. Srila Prabhupada, in the beginning of the purport, he's in fact paraphrasing one important verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam in the 10th canto. I hope if I switch verses, you'll see that. See this? Can you see the screen now? It shows verses.
Yes, Prabhuji.
You can see 10:33:29. You can see that.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay, great. So the context of this verse, it's spoken during the description of the chapter on the Rasa Leela. And okay, let me go back. So Parikshit Maharaj, he asks Shukadev Goswami a very, very interesting question. He says, "O Brahmana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Lord of the universe, as it descended to this earth, along with his plenary portion to destroy irreligion and re-establish religious principles. Indeed, he is the original speaker, follower, and guardian of moral laws. How then could he have violated them by touching other men's wives? O faithful uphold our vows, please destroy our doubt by explaining to us what purpose the self-satisfied Lord of the Yadus had in mind when he behaved so contemptibly." So Parikshit Maharaj is saying, Lord Krishna has come to establish religion and destroy religion. But he performed an apparently irreligious act. In the middle of the night, he met some married girls and he performed pastimes with them. So why would a Lord who comes to establish religion perform some so-called irreligious act? And Shukadev Goswami gives an answer that is very instructive to us. And I think this may help us if some not so beneficial thoughts have entered our minds about Lord Brahma after we've been reading about him chasing after his daughter for sex. To judge Lord Brahma and to think a bit lower of him would be a mistake on our part. So let's see what Shukdev Goswami says. And Prabhupada basically paraphrases this in the first paragraph of his purport. Shukdev Goswami says, "The status of powerful controllers is not harmed by any apparently audacious transgression of morality we may see in them. For they are just like fire, which devours everything fed into it and remains unpolluted." Purport: great potent personalities are not ruined by an apparent transgression of moral principles. Sridhar Swami mentions the examples of Brahma, Indra, Soma, Vishwamitra, and others. A fire devours all that is fed into it, but the fire does not change its nature. Similarly, a great personality does not fall from his position by an irregularity in behavior. In the following verse, however, Shukdev Goswami makes it clear that if we try to imitate the great personalities ruling the universe, the results will be catastrophic. So Prabhupada says, in the purport, that as a fire can consume anything and everything without being contaminated, so by the grace of the Lord, the fire of Brahma's greatness consumed his desire for the sinful act of sex with his daughter. The Vedas are the source of all knowledge, and they were first revealed by Brahma to the Mercy. So basically, Prabhupada is saying great personalities, they can be compared to fire. Even if you throw a stool on fire, in fire, fire does not become contaminated. In fact, fire or sunlight purifies even the place where there is stool. So in the same way, great personalities, their spiritual nature is like fire. It never diminishes. It's strong. So even if there's some apparent transgressions, as fire is not contaminated if you throw some pollutants into it, great personalities do not become contaminated. And that's been made very clear. And Prabhupada gives some further reasons and explanation and evidence of why that is so. And Prabhupada quotes this verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam, giving Krishna's perspective on a devotee who may experience some transgression. And he says, any person who is engaged 100% in the transcendental loving service of the Lord at his lotus feet is very dear to the personality of Godhead Hari. And the Lord, being situated in the heart of a devotee, excuses all kinds of sins committed by chance. That's an important word Prabhupada uses. By chance. By chance means it's not premeditated. It's circumstantial. So this is the position of Brahma, and it is important because this clarification is important because this verse is saying that the Vedas came from Lord Brahma. And someone may say, well, how seriously should we take that Vedas? Because Brahma was in a fallen position. And generally, it's not advised for us to hear or take instructions from fallen persons. So someone may question the purity of the Vedas. Someone may question the sanctity of the Vedas. And Prabhupada is making that very clear. Firstly, the Vedas came ultimately from Krishna because the Vedas was revealed within the heart of Lord Brahma. And then secondly, Lord Brahma, just like fire is never contaminated, he should be considered to be completely pure, despite what evidence we read about the Vak incident previously. So it's a very, very important purport that Srila Prabhupada is given. And what comes out here is Srila Prabhupada is so protective of his readers. If we just read this translation without Srila Prabhupada's purport, we may have found ourselves in maybe a difficult position. But Srila Prabhupada is so protective of his readers, so protective of his devotees. He anticipates that such consciousness may arise after reading the previous verses and episodes. And Prabhupada completely clears it out from various perspectives that the Vedas, which contains all varieties of knowledge, became manifested from his mouth And we accept these Vedas as pure words of the Lord that can be followed. Any questions, comments, or reflections on this before I move on to the next verse? Okay, shall we move on? Okay, text number 35. Chaturotram karma tantram upaveda nayai saha dharmasya padas chatvaras tataiva shrama ritayaha. I won't read the word for word. I'll just go to the translation. The 4 kinds of paraphernalia for conducting the fire sacrifice became manifest. The performer, the chanter, the offerer, the fire, and the action performed in terms of the supplementary Vedas. Also the 4 principles of religiosity, truth, austerity, mercy, and cleanliness, and the duties in the 4 social orders all became manifest. Purport. Eating, sleeping, defending, and mating are the 4 principles of material bodily demands which are common to both the animals and human society. To distinguish human society from the animals, there is the performance of religious activities in terms of social statuses and orders of life. They are all clearly mentioned in the Vedic literatures and were manifested by Brahma when the 4 Vedas were generated from his 4 mouths. Thus, the duties of humankind in terms of the statuses and social orders were established to be observed by the civilized man. Those who traditionally follow these principles are called Aryans, or progressive human beings. So some events are being described here at the beginning of creation. 4 types of paraphernalia became manifest, and also the 4 principles of religiosity. Sometimes people ask the question, these 4 regulative principles that you follow, where did they come from? Some people say, oh, when Srila Prabhupada went to America in 1966 in the storefront in New York, when he got some followers, he wrote on a piece of paper and he posted it there. Actually, in the beginning, Prabhupada didn't introduce the 4 principles, regulative principles. It's a bit later that he introduced them. But we see these were manifested at the very beginning of creation. Very beginning of creation. And we know that gambling destroys truthfulness, illicit sex destroys cleanliness, eating of meat, fish, or eggs destroys mercy, and intoxication destroys any semblance of austerity. So these regulative principles were manifested at the beginning. And Prabhupada says, in the purport, he says to be called human beings or progressive human beings, or sometimes called the Aryans. The Aryans are the progressive human beings. These regulative principles are given. It's just what civilized people do. So it's interesting that these regulative principles that we follow, we see where the original roots are from the beginning of creation. And it was manifested to preserve religiosity. It says religion, just like a table, stands on 4 legs. If you have 3 legs, it becomes wobbly. If you have 2 legs, it falls over. And if you have 1 leg, it's just no longer a table. So in the same way, Dharma, religiosity, it rests on these 4 pillars of truth, austerity, mercy, and cleanliness. So if anyone asks you, where did these 4 regulative principles that you follow come from? What is the basis? You can tell them the history of Srila Prabhupada, but then you can tell them at the very dawn of creation, these regulative principles were manifest in. So text number 36. Vidura uvacha Savai Vishva Shrijamisho Vedadhin Mukato Shrijat Yad Yenash Shrijat Devas Tanme Bruhi Tapodhana. Vidura said, O great sage, whose only wealth is penance, kindly explain to me how and with whose help Brahma established the Vedic knowledge which emanated from his mouth. Again, such an interesting question Vidura is asking. And it's interesting, he's saying that Maitreya Muni's wealth is penance. Why is wealth, why is penance described as a wealth? Because through penance, one gains control over the senses. One may have lots of pounds in the bank, tons of gold in a safe locket. But if one is unable to control the senses, that person can be considered to be very poor. Very poor. So the great thinkers, the great sages, their wealth is penance, austerity. So he's asking the question, okay, the knowledge, the Vedic knowledge was first spoken by Brahma. But how was this knowledge established? Text 37. Okay, I'll just leave the translation. Oh no, let me read it. Maitreya uvacha rigyajur samartav yan vedan purvadibir mukhai shastram idyam stuti stomam prayaschitam vyadhat kramat. Maitreya said, beginning from the front face of Brahma, gradually the 4 Vedas, the Rig, Yajur, Sama, and Atharva became manifest. Thereafter, Vedic hymns, which had not been pronounced before, priestly rituals, the subject matters of the recitation, the transcendental activities were all established one after another. So it's explaining here how the 4 Vedas, the Rig, Yajur, Sama, and Atharva Veda, how they became manifest. And it said your Vedic hymns which had not been pronounced before, priestly rituals, the subject matters of the recitation, and transcendental activities were all established one after another. So the Vedic knowledge becomes established through sound. In the early days, there were no paper, there were no books. Everything was done on the basis of sound. The moment something was spoken to a student in ancient times, the student can remember word for word, syllable by syllable, all that was spoken to them by the teachers and the Guru. And knowledge was transmitted on that basis by the oral process. Like Brahma would speak the Vedas, and there will be living entities and personalities would hear. And when they hear, their brain tissue was so fine they could remember everything. Everything. And then they obviously had to assimilate it and understand it, and thereafter they would transmit it. This was a unique way of doing it. I was listening to a class the other day, and the devotee giving the Bhagavatam class raises the question. He says there were 88,000 sages at Naimisharanya. How did the sages sitting right back, because it must have been a very big assembly, and a stadium of 50,000 people, it's quite a big structure. And how could they all hear Sutta Goswami speak? And the devotees was explaining they had this principles like a repeater. There would be someone that was hearing Sutta Goswami speak, and they would repeat, and the person in the next within hearing distance would hear it, and verbatim would repeat it to the next one. And in this way, the sound would be passed on through this process of repeating. And there was no question of anything being missed out. They were of such fine intellect, of such fine brain tissue, that whatever they heard, they could repeat exactly how it was heard. So, yeah, some description of what's going on here. Dear devotees, that's the final verse that we were meant to be discussing today. I'll stop here. I'll take any questions, comments, or reflections that anyone has.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you for the very nice class. Can I ask you, please? You mentioned earlier on the words penance and austerity.
Yeah.
Is there a difference between the two? And if so, what's the difference, please?
I generally take them to be synonymous. Penance means voluntarily taking on some inconvenience for a higher purpose. And austerity is generally the same. I'm not sure if there's any subtle difference, but generally I've always understood them to be synonymous. Yeah. Maybe
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you.
As they can say too. Yeah. Any other questions, comments, or reflections from anyone? Yeah, there's just so much in Bhagavatam. So nicely Prabhupada has presented it. Okay. No other questions, comments, reflections? Shall we close today's session? Okay. Thank you very much, everyone. All glories to your service. All glories to Srimad Bhagavatam. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Survescha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Prabhupada ki jai.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you. Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna. Thank you,
Hare
Prabhuji.
Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.